Hello.
Hi.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome back.
Oh. I'm sorry, everybody. I don't know what that was. I don't know. Hello.
Oh.
Yours sounded way better than mine. Welcome back.
Welcome back to another podcast
episode. Today we are going to talk about grace over. Sorry, I try to communicate telepathically, and
I
that
wasn't
you would
even
say
looking at you. I'm so sorry.
it's okay. Grace over
Perfection.
Yeah, it
Woo!
worked. We made it.
Yeah.
Yep. Grace.
Grace over perfection.
So first, we're gonna go through the definition of grace. And actually, I really like this definition. I don't. Where did I do that? Actually, this definition for grace, I really like it. It says, unearned and undeserved favor and love of God, freely given to humanity.
For real.
That is a great definition. So, based on that definition, how have we experienced grace? How based on that definition, I can go first.
Okay.
So, the first thing that came to mind is the whole like unearned, undeserved idea, right? Because the moment that I can think back to when I was younger is, I know I've talked about this before, and I feel like I bring it up all the time, but it's like I learned so much during this time. But it was when my grandma passed away. The reason why I'm saying that is because like during that time of that happening, like I was so mad at God. Like I was really mad at God. And like I like stopped going to church for a little bit and just did things that were bad for me, and I knew they were bad for me, right? And when I finally decided to come back to God and have him be my rock again, I didn't feel like I deserved it because of what I told him, what I did. But he took me right in, like if I was his long lost son. And it was like we didn't miss a beat. It was such a peaceful reconciliation, I guess you could say. I'm using so many big words. I don't know why. But it was like it was really peaceful, and there was no shame when I actually accepted, like, okay, like God come into my life now. But so for me, like I honestly didn't feel like I deserved that. But that was I think that was my first experience with like grace in my life. What about you?
I think, okay, I feel like mine is, well, I don't know. I feel like I don't know. Anyway, sorry. Mine's kind of similar. When I was like 15, I've talked about this before, mainly on my testimony, but when I was 15, I was in like a super terrible relationship. And it was like super damaging to my mental health. So when we broke up, I kind of was like, I was mad at God for allowing that situation to have happened to me. And I was mainly like confused. And also I didn't ask for help. So I was kind of like dealing with it on my own. But with that, like I kind of like you said, like I surrounded myself with people that were not good for me. And I was like doing things that were not healthy for me. And like I distanced myself from God, and like I wasn't, actively pursuing him at all. But like the moment, it was probably like 4 or 5 months of that. But like the moment that I like needed him again, not needed him again, you always need him, but like I acknowledged that I needed him and like went back to him. It wasn't like he was mad at me or like he wasn't like, I don't want to because you did this and this and this and this. It was like nothing ever happened, and he was just, it felt like he was just happy that I was back, and like, and then he just filled me with like joy and peace and like healed me and everything. But yeah. And then also like there are so many times when like we make mistakes and like, you know, we fall short and we sin and we, you know, fall into temptation and stuff, but you know, and we should feel guilty about it and bad about it. We shouldn't, but you know, you feel like you should.
Yeah.
And you know, you think that you're going to go and ask God and talk to him about it and he's going to like yell at you or be mad at you, but he just like, he continuously provides for you. And like recently I went through something where I acknowledged something that I was doing was wrong, but I didn't like feel, I don't know, like God like even through that time that I was doing those things that were bad for me and wrong for me, recently specifically, like God continuously provided for me and was still like doing things for me and like making,
there was just no shame in it.
yeah
Like,
and
there
like
was no-
it wasn't like he forgot about me. Like there were still things that he was doing in my life and he was still moving in my life, even though like he probably shouldn't have been because I wasn't doing things that were right for me. So yeah, but yeah, there are so many things that I could talk about because it's so cool. And he does it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the cool thing, that like sometimes we don't even know that, like we don't even recognize that he's like doing things for us until like after. Right?
Yeah.
And that's when you realize you're like, man, like you never actually left me, even though I felt like you did leave me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think,
I wonder why we think that way. Why we think that God left us.
Well, I think it's because because when it comes to any sort of negative emotion like shame and things like that, I think that because that's how other humans react, I feel like that's why we think God is going to react that way. Right? But then it's a whole other thing, understanding that because like, for example, there's a basic example. When people say that they can't trust God because he did this and did that or everything, like, oh, what? I'm sorry.
We should have a compilation of
No.
David, you have to make a compilation of all the things, all the times Felipe says not real.
Anyway,
words.
When people say that they can't trust God because they've been treated terribly their entire life and their trust has been broken over and over and over again, is what they fail, or at least the way I see it, is what they fail to see is that God is not a human. Like, humans are going to fail each other. Humans are going to hurt each other. Humans are going to like betray each other. You know, it's just the way the world works. But once you understand that God is not human and God like will actually not fail you. Like, despite how many doubts and how many things have happened in your life, God is the one thing who will never fail you. And that's like the difference between like when people say that they can't trust God because, you know, they've been hurt their entire life or whatever. But it's like, that's not really accurate, because God shouldn't be placed in that category along with humans, because he's nowhere near that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
He's perfect and
exactly.
Some
compilation.
Yeah, compilation for me too. That was full circle. Anyways, sorry. What was I saying? Oh, right. Sorry. God's perfect, and so obviously when something is imperfect, it negatively affects other things. And so we're human beings, and as human beings, we're imperfect, so we're going to hurt other people. But God's not perfect, so there's like,
God is perfect.
Whoa, whoa,
God is perfect.
God is perfect. God's perfect. Okay. Anyways, and since God is perfect, he can't hurt us. He won't hurt us. He's only gonna bring good things to our lives, and he's never gonna leave us, and his promises are true because he's perfect. And if he was imperfect, then he would be lying when he promises and doesn't pull through, but he does because he's perfect. So when he promises us stuff like that, he always loves us and he's never gonna leave us, and that no matter what we do, he's always gonna be there and he's always gonna forgive us. We have to believe him because he's perfect and he's not gonna lie, and his promises are true.
You're very, very passionate about this.
I am.
See,
sorry.
I agree with that. The one thing I just need to add, because I think it's important,
of course,
is that, sorry, is that yes, you're right. As long as we do His will,
of
and
course,
as long as we put Him as the priority, because for us it may seem like, oh well, God's not doing anything good in my life, but it's like, okay, well, are you doing the right thing and putting Him first before you ask for anything? Or if you need guidance, like, are you actually listening to what God is telling you to do? Like, I think that's also the big difference between, because you're right, like, God is perfect. God will forgive us. God will always be there for us. God will fulfill His promises always, as long as we continue to put Him first. And so I just wanted to clarify, but that was really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So now we're going to read Romans 3. Would you like to read it, please?
Okay.
Romans 3, verse 23 through 24. Once Julianne opens the Bible.
I got it.
Good job. Go. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God and are justified by his grace as a gift through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus.
Boom.
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 Boom. Boom.
Isn't that a thing?
What?
Like on
Wait, are we gonna get copyrighted if we do that?
No.
Is the the Costco guys? Is that what you're talking about? The boom.
Yeah,
boom.
that's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
That's not what we
Costco
were
is.
doing though.
Sorry.
So please don't.
No, we were not doing that.
Yeah, please don't like. cringe at us or something.
That is fulfilling Jesus's prophecy, right?
Yeah.
His death and his resurrection is the makeup for our own shortcomings. What?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
I wasn't gonna say anything.
Oh. Okay. Well, yeah. So that first part of that verse is acknowledging that we're gonna fall short. And I think that's also very important because we're talking about, grace over perfection. And we're going to talk a little bit about perfection in a little bit. But acknowledging that we're going to fall short of his glory, that we're going to fall short as humans. But we don't have nothing to worry about because Jesus died for us. And now we have grace.
Yeah.
Woo!
Because listen. In the freaking Old Testament, okay? In the Old Testament.
The Old Testament.
In the Old Testament, before Jesus, in the Old Testament.
You said that like 20 times.
To be like cleansed of your sins, you had to sacrifice an animal. Well, first of all, you had to do all the right works and you had to try your hardest not to sin and do the perfect thing. And it was all about like, oh, if I do this and this and this and this and this, then I'll be good. And if I don't do this, I have to sacrifice an animal or I'm going to burn in hell. You know? That's how it was in the Old Testament. And so it was all based off of if you were doing good enough and if you were faithful enough to God. But then Jesus came and he is perfect, because the animals in the Old Testament had to be like perfect so that it could be like,
they
had to be perfect so you could sacrifice something perfect to like cancel out your sin or whatever. It's very, anyways. But when Jesus came, he took that, he died as a living sacrifice like the animals, but since he's God, he took the price. He paid the price so that we don't have to worry about, like, you know, it doesn't have to be all about works. It can be about like a relationship with Jesus and like having a relationship with Jesus.
Hence
and it doesn't
the
have
fact.
to, and so that's when grace comes in, is because like God is God, and God is the same God in the Old Testament and the New Testament, but there wasn't, I don't think, you know, God still had grace in the Old Testament, but it was like, you know, everything was based off of like, if you do right enough, right, then you get into heaven. Right?
There was certain, we talked about some of the covenants and promises from God that
Yeah.
some of them were regardless of what the people did in the world, he wouldn't do, but then some other ones they were conditional.
Yeah. But now that Jesus came, he fulfilled all of that stuff, and we don't have to, and that's when the grace comes in of like, we can mess up and we can screw up, but Jesus loves us anyways. And if we are repentant, he's going to forgive us and forget about it and continuously provide for us. And so, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah. Hence why he's called the perfect lamb.
Yeah, because they would sacrifice lambs.
He was the perfect sacrifice.
Yeah. And now we don't have to kill animals.
Yeah.
Unless you want to eat them, which is fine.
We should talk about that. You know?
Guys, we had Dave's again. Did we talk about that?
Wait. Yeah. Side note, guys. We're so excited. We had Dave's after like a 3-month hiatus almost.
Yeah, we took a sabbatical.
Yeah, I took a sabbatical off of Dave's. Those real ones remember that episode where we ate Dave's and ate like ice cream with soy sauce and it messed both of our stomachs up and we didn't touch Dave's for a long time. But then we went like twice in a week or something, or 2 weeks, and it's pretty good.
Yeah, we forgot. Well, I think it's been like,
it might be longer, has it?
No, well, I think was it 2 or 3 times that we've been in the last like week?
3. No, 2. 2 in the last week and 3 in the last 2 weeks.
Okay. Yeah, so basically we're back.
And
literally we're so upset.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been so mad at myself for not like doing something. Like, I'm so mad I took that much time away from Dave's.
Yeah.
Like I took a bite and I was like, that's the worst decision I've ever made in my whole life.
Yeah. Literally after every time we ate it, right after we were like, why did we stop coming to Dave's?
Yeah. So Dave's Kick is back. Dave's is back.
Send us gift cards.
Sponsor us, please.
Sponsor us.
We had to tell you. We had to fill you
in. We could take you in a vlog.
Right, of course.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, David. We're setting that up.
Live podcast at Dave's.
Live podcast at Dave's. I wonder how that'll go. I wonder if they'd let us record.
Maybe if we were like, hey, we would have to find evidence of every time we talked about Dave's in our podcast, so that they would know that we like actually like talk about them, and then they would probably maybe be like, oh yeah.
But then we have like our own little corner or something like that. We could just have an episode there, and if people come up to us, that would be cool.
That would be cool.
You know what? We should do live.
We're gonna go talk to them after this episode. Actually,
we should just do live podcasts, just random places around here,
like vlogs.
Yeah, kind of like a vlog, but like a. That would be so. Okay, let's talk about.
Okay, yeah, we have to have a podcast meeting later. And
podcast
why have we never had a podcast?
We've never had a podcast. Well, because we have so many meetings, worship meetings, youth meetings.
That's true. That's it.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's only 2. Sorry. Okay.
Sorry for the tangent. Let's go back to the Bible. Now we're going to read Ephesians 2, verses 8 through 9. As long as
10 is also underlined because we've read it before.
Okay.
But just don't read that one. Unless you want to.
Okay. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing, it is the gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast. So kind of going back to what Julianne was saying, right? Back in the good old days, in the Old Testament days, you had to sacrifice. It was a lot about works. And obviously that was despite the sins you committed, I'm sure there was some sort of boastfulness of, I have the most perfect lambs, I have the best cows.
Like, I only sinned 2 times this week.
So like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it just reminds us that it's not of our own doing. It is because of him and because of his sacrifice. And we don't deserve it. We literally don't deserve it. I mean, the whole definition, right? Unearned and undeserved love and favor from God, right? We don't deserve it. However, he gives us. Yeah, however he gives it to us freely.
That means we don't have to
for free.
We don't have to feel like we have to earn his love and his grace. That's what it was like in the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
But Jesus came, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. I mean, you still have to like.
It's different now.
It's different now.
Yeah.
It's not all about the works.
Yeah.
You still have to, apply the Bible to your life and, abide by.
Have a relationship with Jesus.
Yeah. But you don't have to like freak out every time and like literally like have a stroke every time that you mess up.
Well, and that's where the whole idea of how we just read in Ephesians, the whole grace and faith go along with each other, right? Because grace is something that we get from God that we don't deserve, and faith is believing that we're actually receiving this thing, or believing that he's actually going to take care of us, and that he's actually going to come through and he's going to follow through. And and they go hand in, I mean, they're just a combo, It's a pretty good combo. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah.
You got anything about that?
It's not that like God can't perform miracles to people that are not Christian and not following him, but also you can't just like expect God to do things for you because he's gracious, that is like, you have to have faith and you have to believe and follow him and have a relationship with him. Because I mean, he is good, and obviously he has so much grace. So if he wanted to, he could do whatever he wanted and give you whatever he wanted. But typically, like, you can't just expect him to do things for you when you're not giving anything in return, because it's not a one-way thing. And God knows who he is, and God knows how he deserves to be respected and treated, and yeah. And so, most of the time he's not just gonna like,
Yeah. For real. So just a little last part of this topic is, so we talked a lot about grace, and the topic is grace over perfection, right? And so the question is, why striving for perfection will hurt you? Perfection is something that no one can accomplish ever. The only perfect person was Jesus on earth, right? And when you put a ton of pressure on you to be a good person, to be this, to be that, because of your family or because it's something that you want, you're always gonna fall short, right? And especially if you do it by yourself, and especially if you're like, oh, like I can figure this out by myself. It's pretty easy. I just have to avoid this, and that, right? Let's just say that. But as humans by yourself, it's practically nearly impossible. You're gonna fall short eventually. You're gonna make a mistake somewhere, And when you hold yourself to that sort of like perfectionist, almost, almost like a toxic perfectionist, you end up just hurting yourself, right? Like you end up just hurting you. I just said that, but you also end up hurting the people around you, and which is why, yes, we should always strive to be better and strive to be like Jesus, because that's what we're here on earth to do. But also recognizing that we're not perfect and that we're going to make mistakes, that's where grace comes in, right? And and man, like holding yourself to that standard is exhausting, because it's like all you want to do is just be this perfect person and want to be the perfect friend or the perfect leader or whatever it may be. And then when you fall short, you just are so hard on yourself, and it's tiring. But it's just not worth it, really.
Yeah, well, the whole, like, not the whole point, but like one of the main things and like key things about being a Christian and coming to Jesus is admitting that you need a savior, which would mean like admitting that you're imperfect and that you sin. Because if we're arrogant and cocky and think that we don't sin, the Bible talks about that. It's like if anyone thinks that they don't sin, like, what does it say?
Are you talking about the story of the woman that they were gonna stone, or what are you talking about?
No. Well, that's a good one too. You talk about that. I'll find this verse. Just talk
yeah,
about it for
okay,
a second.
Well, Jesus. Well, there was a woman that got dragged out, and the religious leaders were like, "Yo, she's committing adultery. We gotta stone her to death." And then Jesus is like, "All right, well, if we're gonna do that, then whoever has not committed," he just says, "Whoever has not committed sin, cast the first stone. I mean, throw the first stone." And then nobody threw it because everybody was a sinner.
Yeah, I found it. It's
found it.
1 John.
Okay.
I'm not surprised. I love 1 John.
Go ahead.
Uh-oh. Okay, it says, this is 1 John 1:8. If we say that we have no sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. That was it. And then 9 is, if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. So basically, like, everybody sins, and not, actually, that's kind of crazy, because if you because everybody sins, so if you think that you don't sin, you're lying, which is also a sin. So like,
yeah.
So technically thinking that you're perfect is a sin, and also arrogance is a sin. So
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, there's no need for us to try, and I've struggled with this mainly in my faith. I try to be like, I know there's not like a perfect Christian, and it's not real, but I have always struggled with like trying to do the right thing, and I feel bad if I miss a day reading my Bible, or like I get distracted at like church or something. Like I feel so bad, and I just like I can't. But God doesn't he knows your heart, and obviously we're not perfect, and he knows that because he knows everything, so he's not gonna just when we make a mistake. That's the point of grace. You gave
Classic. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Anyways, all that to say, I don't really know what I'm saying anymore. I got confused.
Sidetrack.
Yeah. But basically, the Bible states that we are not perfect, and if you think you're perfect, you're wrong. So you just don't need to try to be. Just love Jesus and try to be more like Jesus every single day. Make that your priority, not trying to be perfect. We need to kind of switch the mindset a little bit.
And also, the important part to recognize is that Jesus doesn't want us to be better and then go to him. He wants us to come to him with all of our brokenness, all of our insecurities, all of our sin, and then he will help us to get out of there. Yeah. It's kind of like the same idea. I heard this a while ago, but it's the same idea. When you go take a shower, like let's say you got in a puddle of mud, right? like you don't clean the mud off with like a broom and like some napkins or something, and then you go take a shower, right? You jump right in the shower and get everything out, right? It's the same idea where you don't have to be good to go to Jesus. Like you don't have to be good to go to church. You don't have to be good to do all that. Now, there is a difference between, what is it called? There's a difference. There's a mix between, oh man, I'm blanking out. I'm sorry. What was I going to say? I forgot. I'm sorry.
You were talking about how like you don't clean yourself up before you go to God. Like you go to him imperfect and he helps you.
Yes.
He helps you work through it.
Yeah. I don't remember. It's okay. It was a good ending to the point, I guess.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's fine.
Anyway, yes. So Jesus changes us from the inside out.
Yes, he does.
So
and he wants us to bring our brokenness and wants us to bring our imperfections and wants us to bring our hurt and mistakes and sins. And he wants to help us.
Mm-hmm.
So never feel guilty about coming to him with all of your stuff because he wants you to.
Yes.
And it brings him joy to help you and for you to just be with him.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So to end this episode, Julianne.
Yes.
What's your favorite vacation you've been on?
Okay. I want so badly to say Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, but it was so freaking hot when I was there. Like, I've never, I was so uncomfortable because we went in July, which is like, I've never been so uncomfortable in my whole life, but it was so pretty and it was really fun. And I loved being in a different, like a foreign country. It was so fun.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so hot and it was so humid and I just wanted to curl up. But I couldn't because it would be too hot.
Yeah,
and so I literally,
you trapped the heat.
I was so uncomfortable. So I wish I could say that one because it was so pretty and it was so fun, but I can't. My favorite, this is so basic, but it was Hawaii. It was perfect. It was so perfect. The weather was perfect. I literally, we were there for 8 days and I just sat on the beach and read for like 5 of them all day. And it was so fun. And I boogie boarded and we went snorkeling and the ice cream was really good and I got a cool sweatshirt and we went exploring the mountains and like the hills and like the forests and stuff, and it was really cool. And went to a luau and that was really cool. Anyway, yeah, that was so fun. And it wasn't too hot, but it was hot enough where I could like wear my swimsuit all the time and it was so fun, but not too hot where I wanted to just like
melt.
Yeah, like crawl out of my skin. So it was so amazing. Anyways, that's my favorite.
Nice.
What about you?
Probably Cancun, Mexico. Even though I'm from Mexico and whatever, but what?
I like the way that you said it.
What?
I liked the way that you said it. It was fun.
But yeah, it was really fun. It was honestly, if I'm being completely honest, it was the fact that it was all inclusive. So like I could get as much food as I wanted. Like we would go to like a restaurant and
that's the reason it was your favorite.
That was literally the reason why it was my favorite. Because like this one time we went to this restaurant and they had a duck dish. I'm sorry, but it was a very delicious duck dish. And I finished it, and then the guy was like, "Hey, man, are you still hungry?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, since it's all inclusive, you can get as many as you want." And I'm like, "For real?" So then I got 2 more, and then my stomach hurt later, and I almost threw up. But that's not the point. The point is that it was delicious, and now Julianne's really upset at me because I said that
anymore.
Well, it looks like this is the last episode ever. Unless David Byers decides to join our the seat. Oh, he just said
He said
no.
no.
So, yep, this is the last episode ever. I'm sorry, but it was so good.
You ate 3 ducks.
I'm sorry. Okay, well, we're gonna resolve this off camera because we need to press forward. and-
Yeah, David.
They'll show up in the bloopers.
Anyway, guys, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.
And we hope to see you on the next one.
I hope you like
And
the
comment your favorite
podcast.
vacation.
Yeah, comment. We miss your
Comment.
guys'
Yeah, you guys
comments. You guys,
stop
don't
commenting.
comment anymore.
You
We
guys need to
miss reading them.
Okay. I'm pulling in I'm making an executive decision. Whoever comments on this video,
Who said? Okay, sorry. You're
what?
not the boss,
That's what I'm saying. I'm making an executive decision.
but you're not the boss.
Okay, well then will you let me do what I was gonna say?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So collective decision. Whoever comments first, I will buy you anything from our youth merch store. Whoever comments first in this video. All right?
Whoa!
No cheating. No cheating. You can't tell youth. David, you can't tell youth. Yes, you.
Yeah, you, David.
Yeah, you. Okay, so whoever comments in this, and you don't have to be a youth, but you're going to get something from
Yeah,
the
you'll
youth
get
merch store.
something from the youth merch store.
Anyway, comment, and we miss your guys' comments.
A
So
lot.
please interact
Comment.
with us. We miss you
Do we
guys.
read the YouTube comments?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I get an email
don't.
every-
I read the
Well,
Spotify one.
Well, I get an email every time anybody comments on anything.
Okay.
So that's how I know like if people comment or don't
That
comment.
makes sense.
So anyway, comment,
Comment.
and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for
Bye-bye.
watching. Bye bye.